The Mountaineers and their head coach Jen Greeny in the spotlight now in the Big 12 opening set. Coach Greeny, we welcome you to this conversation, and we mentioned that preseason expectations are always kind of a tricky, fickle beast, especially in a conference that has so much parity. So what's the key for you to get the Mountaineers to go out and prove, or so to say, that they were wrong about your team?
Well, when we got here a couple of years ago, we've really focused on just building from the ground up, and we made great strides last year, moving over 100 RPI points. And so we're just going to continue to do that. And I think really building the foundation, focusing on fundamentals, and just going out every day and competing really tough.
Coach, you talk about season 3 for you. You've already made great strides, like you said, in building 12-0 last season to start, which was a best in program history. I want to talk a little bit about when you talk about this program, your gold standard blue collar phrase and mantra that you like to talk about. Can you explain a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of taking our school colors and, we've been doing this for quite a few years now as far as building programs, but we're having just really high standards, but also having that blue collar mentality. And we need to have that in a program like this when we're building and we're trying to upset, teams and make moves in the Big 12, that we're always gritty and we're fighting, and a little nod to our state of West Virginia as well, that people around here work really hard and have high standards, and so we love that.
And Coach, you've brought in a really interesting mix of international players, transfers, and highly accomplished freshmen. What excites you the most about the new pieces you've added to this roster?
Yeah, so we will have more competition in the gym than we've had in the 3 years, and so that's really exciting already. Training wise, we just keep getting better every single day, and putting that pressure to make each other better. So we have 10 newcomers from last year's team, and you're exactly right, a mix of transfers, internationals, and freshmen. So it's been really fun just training so far these first few days.
Staying on that topic of these newcomers, has this roster given you a new perspective on coaching?
Oh, well, I'm not sure about a new perspective, but, having 10 new players, you definitely need to kind of go back to the basics and teach from the ground up. And so I think that's been really great that we've had this extra time, this preseason, so that we can really get those fundamentals and teach and be really specific on how we want to do things.
Coach, when you are building a program like you are, a lot of times you can have these moments that you take with you. Last season, obviously starting 12-0, but some big wins as well in conference. Is there a moment last season that you felt like, okay, guys, this is it, and we can really make a big jump off from this and take it with us as far as confidence?
Well, Amy, I know you don't want to hear this, but it was our BYU win. You probably knew that was coming. A first time in school history that we've beat a ranked opponent at home, and a great BYU team, and we were able to get that win. And then unfortunately we had a couple of season-ending injuries of our starters, but we still played a lot of 5-set matches, and I think that just shows that we're getting better and better every single time we come out.
Lots of new faces on this roster, so potentially a new look. What's one area where you feel like this group in particular has grown the most since the end of last season?
I think probably defensively. We have added a lot of great players defensively, and we've worked really hard in the spring and in this preseason. We know we needed to get better in that area, and so that's been a lot of our focus. And so, trying to get some more digs to move us into maybe the middle part of the Big 12 with that stat. And so hopefully you'll see that this year.
What defensive player really stood out to you in the spring, doing the little things right, really being coachable and able to do all the things that you ask of them?
Yeah, I'd say probably Nina Horning. She had a good season last year, and she's somebody that really, really wants to get better. She spends a lot of extra time in the gym on her own, doing skill work or one-on-one with a coach. And, for somebody that's 6'4", sometimes, defense might not be what she's really thinking about, maybe being more offensive minded, but, she's somebody that really committed to the process and made some great strides defensively.
Coach, you mentioned jumping over 100 RPI spots last season. Major credit to you and the program and what you are building. I know every player and every team wants to be an NCAA tournament team. So what has to happen for you to ascend to that level and continue this growth?
Yeah, so I think, we need to take care of what we need to do in the preseason, of course, and then, trying to get maybe to the middle of the Big 12. And I talked a little bit about those 5-set matches. We lost quite a few of those. And so just really talking about doing the little things right so that we can get those wins. And that's just what we need is having some more wins in the Big 12. And so, it's a step-by-step process, but, we're focusing on doing the little things right so that we can hopefully continue to move up in the RPI and our record as well.
And Coach, when you talk about the players you want to bring into the program, you mentioned the phrase, be the change. What does that mean as you're looking towards these players coming in, and what kind of player would you like to bring to your program?
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody that maybe just doesn't want to go to a program that's already been there, already done it. Maybe they are going to, sit on the bench for a little bit. We want players that want to come in really hungry to compete. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is, have a little bit of underdog mentality and be the change. I think that's something when you're building a program that's really fun to be a part of. And I know a couple of the players that you're going to talk to have really been important in that and being the change and being the foundation and doing the little things right and building the culture. So we want, student athletes that come in with that attitude, and you can really see that they're all willing to put in the extra work so that they can build that foundation and be the change. And when you go, 20 years from now and look back and you can say, hey, I was part of that, pretty special.
And Coach, if we're sitting here at the end of the season and you say it has been successful, what needs to happen?
Yeah, I think that's kind of two-part. Now that we're in year 3, we made some great changes and I thought we were doing some great things last year, but we would love to keep moving forward and keep moving those RPI points. And our goal ultimately is to make it to the NCAA tournament.
Coach Jen Greeny of the West Virginia Mountaineers on the Big 12 opening set. Coach, thanks for the insight and education on your team. Good luck in 2026.
Yeah, thanks, you guys.